Hello, this is video number 6 for chapter 32. It's going to be on changes in the AS curve, aggregate supply curve, but I want to pick up where I left off in the last video for a minute and talk a little bit more about the ratchet effect. So when AD shifts to the left, as it is right now, with our recession that's going on right now, because we're all at home, we're not spending, we're not going to restaurants, we're not spending as much gas, you're not driving to school, et cetera, et cetera. So AD is shifting to the left. The price level isn't going to go down very much. I know gas prices are getting cheaper, but that's another dynamic altogether that has something to do with other things. But in terms of normal prices for clothing and like, they're not going to drop very much here. So we're going to slide this way along a short run AS curve that is actually horizontal here. This portion of the AS curve kind of doesn't exist right now because we're not going to slide down with lower prices. So we're going to wind up here, and that's going to require some kind of a stimulus package from Congress, which they're working on as we speak. Hopefully it'll be passed in the next several days. And there'll be a lot of spending involved in that. Some of it will be probably checks just sent to households. People who have paid taxes in the past are going to get a check in the mail in the near future, is my guess. We'll see what's actually in the package in the next couple of days. Loans are going to be offered to businesses to try to keep them open, even though they don't have any customers right now. Let them pay the bills that they have, and maybe even keep paying some of their employees. So as that stimulus package is passed, AD is going to start shifting back to the right. And we're probably just going to slide right along that portion of short-run AS that is actually horizontal and get back to where we were, is the hope. There may be a little inflation involved in this, but we're hoping that there won't be very much. So we'll probably get right back to there, okay? So that's a comment on what's going on in the here and now. All right, I'm going to now erase this, and we're going to do the AS. So let's draw an economy that is operating at full employment. Price level, GDP, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, our equilibrium, and if we're operating at full employment, FE, this is the long run aggregate supply. This time we're going to shift AS back to the left to AS2. We'll call that AS1. So as aggregate supply shifts to the left, because your book suggests that a major terrorist attack blows up oil facilities and oil prices go up, driving a lot of other production costs up, and producers have to raise prices to sell their products. Some kind of what we call a supply shock is what's happened here. That's going to drive prices up from the original price level, PL1, to PL2. This is classic cost push inflation. Eventually, remember we said cost push inflation is self-limiting. Eventually, the problem, either the oil prices or whatever is happening, will resolve, and people will be taking lower wages, possibly. That could happen as we go on, but aggregate supply is eventually going to shift back to where it was. We probably won't come down here. We'll probably wind up with AS shifting back this way and wind up with an AS curve that is somewhere in between those two to begin with. It could shift all the way back to the beginning AS curve, and as long as aggregate demand hasn't been adjusted, we could very well wind up right back where we started. So that's typical cost push inflation, usually the result of a supply shock of some sort. What is more likely, what more often happens, and is happening actually day to day as we speak, is that technology is improving. People are doing R&D, research and development. They're finding out cheaper ways to do things. Workers are becoming more efficient. Productivity is rising. So what is more likely to happen as we move along, I'll shift to different color pen here, is that aggregate supply is going to slowly be shifting to the right. We'll call this aggregate supply 3. Day by day, short run aggregate supply keeps shifting to the right as we get more efficient and things wind up better. Now, why don't we move down to a lower price level? There are times in history when that did happen. In the late 1800s in the United States, that's exactly what was happening. And if you were living through the 1880s, 1890s into the first decade of the 1900s, you actually lived during a time of deflation. Okay, but what is also happening here with increases in productivity and increases in the stock of capital goods, remember in a previous video, I said that that will shift long-run aggregate supply to the right. Okay, but also what's happening is that people are getting, with higher productivity, they're getting better wages. People's real wages are rising, and guess what is shifting to the right? Aggregate demand is shifting to the right. AD1 to AD2, okay? And so with this shift of aggregate supply to the right, and the shift of aggregate demand to the right, and the shift of long-run aggregate supply moving to the right, we wind up LRAS prime, a higher level of potential GDP, FE prime. The old FE is no longer matters. Long-run aggregate supply has shifted to the right, and hopefully prices have remained stable. That's the kind of economic growth that we hope happens as the aggregate supply shifts to the right. And that concludes this video and pretty much wraps up the chapter. I'll probably be making a couple of videos going over homework questions with you. Homework questions 1 through 4 were due today. Homework questions 5, 6, and 7, and problem number 3 due by next Tuesday. I hope you do it this weekend and turn it in maybe by Saturday or Sunday or Monday sometime, so you don't do it right up to the last minute there. Talk to you later.